Every farm has a story. When it comes to dairy farming, these stories are often only heard by the animals raised, the land stewarded, and the family that makes it all possible. Join me, Dairy Gal Val, as I interview individuals from across the dairy industry, both within the United States and across the globe, discussing topics like farm management, the food industry, ag business and technology, and most importantly, their farm story. This is the Dairy Hour Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Dairy Hour Podcast. I am here with Kevin Hogadorn of ZISK app. How are you today, Kevin?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Belle.
Great. So you have created a really fascinating app that is helping dairy farmers all over the United States and possibly more. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, so we had a couple of goals in mind when we developed the ZISK app, and honestly, the number one goal was that it had to be super fast and simple to use. So, with that in mind, a lot of dairy farmers were asking similar questions like, where can I find the markets in a fast, easy way to the milk market, the corn market. So there was a lot of struggles with that, trying to use different apps and different online with the CME and things like that. And then there was also this item of, what does the milk price actually mean if I'm not looking at the margin on my dairy? So we set about, I should back up. So I do a lot of consulting with dairies. So I'm a veterinarian by training. I ended up in the nutrition and feed industry, but I also just ended up on the business side of things because, as you know, through the 2000s, a lot of dairies struggled, especially with the volatile market prices. So I started building these large spreadsheets based on the dairy's finances to show this is what the next 12 months looks like. Based on the futures markets. And that was really valuable because the dairy farmers could look at it and say, okay, we're showing a profit for the next 12 months. Let's maybe get some feed bought. Let's get some milk locked in. Let's maybe do some milk insurance and things like this. So in essence, I took that experience and built it into this app where really simply a dairy farmer enters the number of cows they milk. They enter their milk production and what their bonus typically is. And then the app goes to the CME and feeds in all the futures prices and comes back to them and says, well, month by month, this is where your potential profit looks like for the next 12 months. And then in addition to that, by the way, here's what the markets are doing. Here's how they've changed from yesterday. We've also, we kind of brokered what we feel is the most important news to them. So there's a news section on it. And we just honestly look for relevant articles that we would read.
Yeah.
So I started work on that in probably 2015. And I think we really launched the app in 2018. And up till this point, we have just at 4 million dairy cows in the US that have downloaded the app, which is about 45% of the cows in the US.
That's very impressive, especially in a few short years. It definitely shows that there's such a need for that out there. As a dairy farmer myself, I know how volatile everything is, and it just seems like it just goes along with the dairy industry, which is very unfortunate, but unfortunately it's the hard truth of being a dairy farmer is you have to learn how to manage through those ups and downs and roller coasters and just margins being all over the place. So essentially you helped make, as accurate of a crystal ball as you could so that farmers can look into the future and kind of plan in one spot what they're looking at.
Right. So that's the first thing I'd say about the app. It's not an accounting system, right? So
no.
I would not expect a dairy to look at it and say, well, it says I'm going to make exactly $400,370. No, but if it's showing a significant profit for your farm, then I think what my goal always was is for the dairy person to start having those conversations. Then maybe they call their banker, their accountant, their milk processor and say, hey, the next 12 months are looking pretty good. Should we lock in some of this? And this is a bit of a new phenomenon that we're dealing with. As a new, the last 20-25 years feels new to me. But prior to 1996, milk wasn't publicly traded. And so once we started trading class 3 milk on the markets, we just saw this volatility increase. But that's not the only thing. The other thing is we came into this information age where, in 1980, for the news of something happening in China or Brazil to get back to the US to have an effect on the markets was a long news cycle. And
Yeah.
what we see today is if China puts an order in for milk powder, every dairyman in the US, every milk processing company knows it within hours. And so we just get this much more volatile markets. And so when I started my career, there was things you could count on, like certain times of the year, the milk price would do this. And you really felt like we kind of know what's going on. And so now, 25 years later, when people ask me, what's the milk price going to do in the next 12 months? I say, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Because I can't predict a pandemic. I can't predict a drought in Brazil. I can't predict all these different things that play in. So that is the one, I would say the biggest challenge we face is the volatility. And I see that especially amongst middle-aged dairy farmers and older, that they're just not used to that. It's scary.
Yeah.
Dairy farmers under 40, they probably have an E-Trade account and they're used to playing on the markets.
I do not have an E-Trade account. You can call me old fashioned though.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So the other challenge I saw too was that dairy farmers had tried to use the markets, and either one of two things happened. They did it correctly and thought, oh, this is easy, I'm an expert. And it went really poorly the next time. And they said, I will never do that again. Or unfortunately, in some situations, a lender forced them into it. And forced them into, say, locking in their milk at $16, and the markets went to 19, and they gave up all that potential. So, we always say at ZISK, we're here to connect and empower the dairy industry. So we're information brokers. And the other thing I didn't mention is the app's free. So for dairy farmers like yourself who get asked to pay for everything, I just didn't want to take another dollar out of the dairy farmer's pocket to bring them this information. So,
well, we appreciate that because, the price of everything goes up and the price of milk, it never goes up. So it's like, here, you have to pay for more. But by the way, we're not going to give you any more money for your milk. So Merry Christmas.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah.
Yes. I know. When I get a chance to sit down, I definitely am going to open up the app and check it out and play with it a little bit and see how it works as far as my herd goes.
Sure.
It's just been a hectic few weeks, so I haven't had a chance to sit down and check it out too much yet, but I've been following you guys online for a little while now, and it's really fascinating to see all the different things and features that the app has that basically puts everything right in one spot, which is also, I feel, a problem. As a dairy farmer, trying to stay up to date on the news and do things like that. Just the industry news, not even the whole world's news. But I feel like having that one spot would be really handy where it's easy to sort through and easy to just see what's going on and not have to go through 7,000 emails like, oh, here's something that's kind of interesting to me. Oh, this has nothing to do with me. Weeding through that. So it seems like the weeding is kind of already done in the app for that as well.
Sure. Yeah. So that's one thing, we see the other media organizations in the dairy industry really as partners. We don't write original content. What we do is curate through the content and say, first, is this an article I would read and is it going to bring value to me for the time I put into it? And that's worked really well. The second thing we actually just started doing is we are always watching analytics. So we know who's reading which articles. So now, once a week, we send out an email with, hey, these were the top 5 articles last week that people found valuable. And that's just been tremendous. Like, I think we're getting like 70% open rate on that email, which makes us feel
Yeah,
makes
that's
us
pretty
feel really,
high.
yeah, it makes us feel really good. That means, if we send this email to 10 people, 7 of them are opening it because they keep finding value in it.
Yeah,
And I think that's really, to me, it's pretty cool because it's dairy farmers themselves telling us what they're interested in so we can share that information with other dairy farmers. So
def
yeah,
definitely
that's
helps make it easier that way.
absolutely, absolutely.
So, you have this really cool app. Let's reverse back to the beginning. You say that you're a vet by trade. Where did you go to vet school? Where did you grow up? Did you grow up on a farm?
Yes. So I grew up on a feedlot in Northwest Iowa. And I think every farm kid probably admires their veterinarian. I certainly did. I looked up to them, and if the veterinarian pulled on the yard, everyone was running over to, they're cool people, right? You look up to them, and so probably somewhere in high school, I decided I wanted to take a shot and try to go to veterinary school. So I made it into. I did my undergraduate at Dordt University, and then was accepted at Iowa State University. And I guess for me, I saw the veterinary industry probably start to change. I was in veterinary school coming back to ride with veterinarians, and the service work part of it wasn't for me. We were running cattle through chutes a lot, and I grew up doing that on a feedlot. So this whole idea of consulting or being an advisor really was attractive to me. So I went over to animal science and took every course they offered in ruminant nutrition. I thought that was pretty cool. And then I just found, through odd circumstances, ran into a company that was doing dairy nutrition. And they had just built a mill in Idaho. And so I joined that company right out of veterinary school and jumped into the dairy nutrition side of things.
So
And
with
then
that, you went into the dairy nutrition side, you said the company was based out of Idaho. Were you still in Iowa or did you move to Idaho or where were
I'm
you?
sorry, the company was based out of Iowa,
Oh,
and
Iowa. Okay.
it was called Ben Beek Nutrition. And so we had a plant in Idaho and later built one in Michigan. And so what ended up happening there is I ended up being more in business leadership and management. So I became the general manager of that company, and we built up to multiple consultants. I think we had around 8 or 10 at one point. But just got heavily involved in business and the dairy industry. And so being the leader of a company like that in 2009, the bloodbath that the dairy farmers took all flows back to the company supplying dairy farmers.
Yes, I was graduating college in 2009, so I am very familiar with trying to get a job out of college on a dairy because that was one of our rules. My family has a dairy farm, but the rule was you're more than welcome to come back to the dairy farm, but you must get a job off the farm before you're allowed back. So I'm very, very aware of how terrible 2009 was.
That's a
And
great that's a great rule,
yeah,
by the way.
it is. It's made a lot of differences in my life and how I view things. I feel like everyone should do that if you're coming from a family farm and plan on returning to that or family business even. It teaches you how to respect someone else, work for somebody else. It teaches you that there is life outside of the farm, which sometimes when you grow up on a farm, that's all you know. And you don't realize all the differences in the way things are done. It doesn't teach you to think outside the box. So I'm 100% in agreement that you should definitely experience off the farm as well as being on your farm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah. So in 2009, I kind of got a baptism by fire into things
Ugh.
like cash flow, lending, and it wasn't just that, it was watching so many dairy farms that we had great relationships just go out of business. And that really started to bother me because I saw in so many cases that it could have been prevented. And, especially, farms that just didn't know, and that was really frustrating for me. So in 2014, I left that company and started my own consulting firm. And the thing that just became immediately evident to me was that many dairy farms don't have a lot of training in business management. And so I think it was just by nature, I had a passion for business. That's really what I love. And then coupling that with, I had great relationships with dairy farms through my nutrition consulting company. So those conversations just started being more and more and more about the business side of things, about risk management, about what did your financials look like last year? What can we do to help those? And so I really think that's where the ZISK app was born out of. And I was working with a coach at the time who challenged me, said, what do you think is the most valuable thing you're doing for dairy farms? And I said, I think it's bringing this awareness of the markets and the volatility in their business, and are they profitable, and how do you make a business profitable? And he challenged me, that's great, you're helping your handful of clients. How do you help the entire dairy industry? And that really is probably where the app was born, and it kind of just kept growing. So I never really had intentions when I launched it for it to get this big. I just thought, well, if I can help dairy farmers with the markets and take away some of the fear, right? If they're looking at the markets every day and they see kind of what they're doing, they're not as scary. And then to encourage them to go talk to other people about it. And then, honestly, I think dairy farmers need to be very grateful for two programs. We have the DMC program and the DRP program. That to me was a lifesaver for dairy farmers. And we talk about this a lot because we've had crop insurance for a long time, but we never really had an insurance for a livestock farmer. And the DRP is not scary because it always leaves an upside. And dairy farmers are just notoriously optimistic, right?
Oh, we're very optimistic. It's great. Yes. And for those, sorry, I'm just going to pause. The DMC and the DRP, for those that don't know, are two government programs that are through the Farm Bill that are basically like insurance to help protect against lower margins. So just for those people that are not as familiar with those programs, yes.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, I threw a acronym out there without explaining.
Oh,
yes,
you're good.
So DRP. So the DMC is dairy margin coverage.
Dairy margin coverage. Yep.
Yeah, and that works very well for farms that are under around 250 cows. I think it covers up to 5 or 5.5, or maybe they raised it to 7 million pounds of milk now. I can't recall.
Yeah, we hit under that, so I don't pay too much attention to the
yeah.
cap.
So that's based off of margin between milk and feed, and then it pays out. You have to sign up for it, but it pays out if the margin's not there. And then the DRP is the dairy revenue protection. What I think is really great about that is if you look at it as a percentage of your total milk check, it's really about the same as crop insurance. And so that's always my challenge to a dairy farmer. Do you farm land? Yes, most of them do. Would you ever go without crop insurance? No, most of them wouldn't. And so that's my challenge. And, why would you go without this? And then laughing about that, I was giving a talk in Denver when milk price was $26. And I asked the audience, mostly dairy farmers, where do you think milk's going? Milk price? Up. They all said up.
Wow, they were actually optimistic.
Yeah. So, but the dairy revenue protection allows that upside to happen. So if you buy the insurance and milk goes up $4, you get to capitalize on that. So anyway, kind of got off track there, but I do love the programs, and they've been very valuable to dairy farmers.
Yeah, they're two great programs, and we're very thankful for them. We'll see what happens with this cycle. For those that don't follow it, the Farm Bill is hopefully getting re-upped this fall / early winter, so that we don't run into any hiccups with that. And if the government could just keep moving, that'd be super.
We'll do that.
Not to get political around here, but keep moving, keep moving. But it's just those programs are so important, and it's kind of, in a way, it's almost unfortunate that we need to have such a program. If we could just have fair prices, fair margins, things would be much nicer, but unfortunately, that's not a reality. So we just do what we can and keep on trucking. So, so, how did you come up with the app? You were challenged to come up with a way to help the dairy industry as a whole. And you wanted to find basically a way to make your spreadsheet into something that was more universal, easier to use, and that could be used essentially, countrywide. Um, do you have any background in app designing? Did you have to find someone to help make your dreams come true, or how did that come about?
Yeah. So if you want to listen to a long story, ask any startup about working with software developers. That is a long, arduous road. I have no background in software or design, but I was a bit of an Excel junkie. So I essentially built the entire app on Excel spreadsheets. And in that way, I was able to communicate to software developers, this is what I want. And that allowed them to turn around and code it all into an app. The other thing a lot of people don't know about apps is you have to constantly be updating them. So every time Apple sends out an update to their phones, you need to make sure you're compatible. The same with Android, Google Play. So that's a lot of work. But no, so I did, I think I'm on my fourth developer company. It's just
Oof.
the nature. The first one really couldn't do what they suggested they could do. The second company got me most of the way there, and then it was a group of 18 people, and they decided to disband. So then the third company really got us to launch. Unfortunately, that company kept growing and growing, and we became one of those small customers that just didn't fit them well anymore.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, so that software development is always a issue. Talking to a lot of technology people in the dairy industry in US, everybody. We were small enough we couldn't afford our own code writers, so we hired it out. And yeah, then it's just a ton of work on different iterations and making sure the numbers are running true and they continue to run true. And then I think a cool part for me was that, all of my clients were the first users, because I would go out to them and tell them, hey, download the latest version, play with it, tell me what you think. And so took their feedback to really hone it into where we wanted it.
definitely. Now, so currently, so it's been going for what, five
I
years now,
definitely
4 years?
5 years. Yep.
Okay, so how many people do you have on staff that are dedicated to doing that, or are they kind of just all part of the consulting business? How does that work?
So we have 3 full-time people on staff, and as well as myself. So I think there's, so there always comes this question about monetization, right? How do you pay for an app to keep it free? And that's where we're really working right now with partners in the industry. There's this big shift in how do we communicate with dairy farmers, and that we really feel like that's our job. We want to connect people, and there's always a fear of, well, if we start putting brand building, if we start putting advertising on the app, what will people think? And that's actually interesting that I've gotten more positive responses, especially from dairy farmers. Said, hey, we totally get it. The app's free. You have to pay for it somehow.
Yeah,
And then, the other thing is, as the dairy economy shifts, it shifts for all of the suppliers and vendors as well. Do they still need to run a team of 30 salespeople around the US, or are there more digital ways to reach customers? So that's really where our focus is right now, is working with companies that are building their brands and what's new in the industry. That's the other thing. We all deal with salespeople, right? So especially in my nutrition business, we have people calling on us saying, hey, here's this new technology, what do you think? And there's a really important role there. Being in everyone's in sales, but to bring information to the end users. And I think the dairy farmers view a lot of people from the industry as sources of information. Now, we always know they're bringing a product to me. They're bringing a new idea. They are after selling me something, but they also bring a ton of information to me that I may not find other places.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like ZISK is a great connect there because it's digital, you can connect anything, right? So I like this, click here, it takes me right there to more information. I can ask for more information. And then as far as the companies working with us as well to build their brand, they get a lot of analytics back, like who's interested in the technology we're bringing to market, what size are they, what areas of the country are they from, all those type of things really play in as well. May have got off track there, but back to our team. Yeah, we're a small team. I would say 3 full-time, 1 part-time is what we're doing.
Good. And so how many farms are on the app in the United States? Are you just in the United States or have you crossed country lines?
We're just in the United States because at this point we're tied to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange,
Yep.
the CME. We've gotten a lot of interest, especially from South America. I would love to jump into South America, but that's going to require some more software design work and also connecting to their market system.
It's a whole different pond.
It is, right. Yeah. So the interesting thing is we have over 4 million cows with right at 4,000 users. So our average herd size is 1,000 cows. And that really makes a lot of sense, I think. We live in an industry that's very interesting. We have families milking 50 cows and we have families milking 30,000 cows. And, just watching those dynamics of the people that download the ZISK app is really interesting to me. We know dairy consolidation is a thing and we kind of all see it happening in front of us.
Yeah. Unfortunate, but it's a necessary evil, unfortunately.
It's living in a capitalistic society.
Yeah.
This is what happens. But I would just still say, I think life's funny and it's about having fun. And I really, really would encourage someone who's grown up on an 80 cow dairy who says, I love milking cows. I love this lifestyle. Man, go for it. Don't ever walk away from something because someone tells you it's not big enough, it's not this or it's not that. I know so many families that are still doing very well, milking under 400 cows. That there's definitely a place for them.
Yeah, so we milk right around 170 here in upstate New York, and we don't really we can bounce kind of between 170 and 200 cows. But in order to go over that 200, we have this large hill behind our barns, so we'd have to kind of find a way to do something with that. And so we've just found different ways to diversify our business and be able to stay relevant while still producing milk, which is our top passion and priority. Just had to find different ways of making income, and so far it's working. And we can keep our fingers crossed that my young children will hopefully grow up and at least 1 or 2 of them will hopefully find value in the dairy side of things and keep it going. It's been quite a ride. My parents are actually first generation dairy farmers, which is not something that you hear of every day. It's not an easy industry to get into. So I actually remember I was 7 or 8 years old when we got our first herd of cows. So I've seen all of the struggles of that first generation and seen how hard that they've worked over the course of my life to give me a farm to come back to. And my husband came to the farm, and now hopefully their grandkids will enjoy and value the farm that they've worked so hard for. So that's the plan. Fingers crossed. We're gonna see how the
Great.
future goes. We'll never force them to do it, but we would be very delighted if they would choose such a path. So
Great,
uh
great story.
yeah, I love sharing that because it's just such a unique thing that, we are first generation dairy farmers. So it's an honor kind of thing. But so anything else, Kevin, that you want people to know about ZISK app?
Um, well, I think I can wax pretty philosophical on some of these issues, but it, we're going digital as a society, and the next 10 years is going to be a radical transformation um, for everyone in the industry, in a lot of industries. And the reason I say that is because up until now, as we've had generations exit the industry, um, we exited 10 years, a decade of dairy farmers, of people working in the dairy industry. And then we brought on a decade of people that, well, we didn't really grow up with cell phones, but we've used them and we kind of get it. But the next 20 years, especially, we're even 10 years, we're going to exit 10 years. And if you figure someone's working life, that's 20% of an industry, right? There's probably 50 years that we work in an industry. So 10 years would be 20%. We're going to exit 20% of dairy farmers, of industry professionals, of veterinarians, of nutritionists who have used technology to a certain degree, but not to a large extent. And we're going to replace them with 20% of an industry that has never known life without a smartphone.
Which is crazy to think about.
It's an incredible shift. And there's a book out there if you're ever interested in reading called Z Economy, and it's about Generation Z. They're going to replace the generation that really had not much to do with digital, and they don't even ask. To them, it's I can either find it on my phone or I can't. And that's going to be our challenge as industry leaders, I think. How do we keep supplying them with information? How do we bring things to them in a way that they'll use them? And they've been taught so well. And the pandemic, even did more with this, with Amazon, with Walmart, with orders, with pickups, with all these things happening. So I think I guess I'm maybe a little older in the industry, we really need to keep that in mind, because the next 10 years coming in, and even probably the 20 to 30 age range, they've never known it any different. And as an industry, I think we really need to shift to that, or they'll just go find their own ways.
Yes, that is 100% accurate. So I'm going to wrap up with one or two rapid fire questions. These are just
Sure.
fun for you, not putting you on the spot, just easy. You can't get the answers wrong. So what's your go-to kind of cheese?
Blue cheese.
Ooh, I like it. Not the standard answer. I do love a good blue cheese. Nice and creamy.
Yep.
And let's see. Would you prefer, or have you ever been a favorite place to visit?
Ooh, favorite place to visit. Yeah, I would say that's northern Minnesota. We go every year with our family to a lake and fish in the spring. And I don't know if it's the place or just having the family there, but we love it.
Good. Everyone needs that happy place. So
Yeah.
that's really exciting. So, Kevin, it was a pleasure talking to you about your app today. Do you want to plug where people can find more information, where they can find your app, where to follow you on social media?
Absolutely. So if you go to the Google Play Store, if you go to the Apple Store and you just type in ZISK, ZISK, it should pop right up as ZISK app. It's free, download it, play with it, send me a message, tell me what you think of it. And then we also have a Facebook page, we have a LinkedIn page, we get tons of people interacting with us there. And next week is World Dairy Expo. So
yep. This will actually come out during World Dairy Expo.
This will come out during World Dairy Expo. So if you are at Expo, come to the Trade Center and find us. We'd love talking to people.
Yes.
But no, I would really encourage people, download the app, play with it, see what you think, and talk to your neighbors about it. You need to get on board with talking about the dairy markets and where they're going.
100%. Kevin, thank you so much for joining me today. Again, if you like this episode, please share it with friends, and we will see you next week on the Dairy Hour. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and leave a review. You can find me on most social media platforms at Dairy Gal Val or online at dairygalval.com. Thank you so much for coming to the Dairy Hour.